So welcome. I'm Debbie Gross. I'm the CEO of Pennsylvanians for Modern Courts. Thank you for joining us at our Spring into Action benefit in Pittsburgh. We are truly grateful that so many of you have joined us today in person and by Zoom. We especially thank our champion sponsors, Dickey, McCamey, and Chakotay, and UPMC. Your generosity and support is extremely appreciated. As I speak and continuing throughout tonight's event, you will see scrolling a list of our many supporters and some wonderful tributes to our awardee, former President Judge Kim Berkeley Clark. 2024 has been and will continue to be a very active year for PMC. While it is not a judicial election year, that's 2025, don't forget, it is an important election year. We held an Attorney General candidate forum, and we held a program on the involvement of the judiciary in assuring safe and secure elections with the League of Women Voters of Pittsburgh, an organization with which we partner frequently and made up of some amazing individuals. Our judicial speakers were Judge Heidi Fox, retired President Judge of the First Judicial District, Judge Shelley Friedman, retired Commonwealth Court Judge, who, by the way, is being honored by the Commonwealth Court at the Heinz Center here on May 23rd, a little public service announcement. Dickinson College President and former President Judge of the Middle District of Pennsylvania, Judge John Jones, and Judge Elizabeth Doyle, retired President Judge of Blair County. A recording of that program, which truly was amazing, is available on our website, www.pmconline.org. PMC has also focused this year on jury service, organizing a Pennsylvania House Judiciary Committee informational hearing on this topic, which you can view on YouTube. We brought in renowned speakers to address the pathetic, and I mean pathetic, sorry, rate of pay for jurors in Pennsylvania. $9 a day for the first 3 days, and then $25 after that, which has not really been increased since 1957. You will hear from our keynote speaker, Abby Ginsburg, a former trial attorney, about her investigation into the impact of this lack of adequate compensation on the diversity of a jury and the resulting failure to have a jury of one's peers. We also discussed the importance of addressing juror mental health. And there are other issues impacting juror service that we didn't even get to touch upon, but you can hear them tomorrow if you join us for a 1.5-hour CLE at Reed Smith at 9:30 in the morning, presenting the movie Judging Juries and a program led by myself and Brendan Burtick of the Pennsylvania Interbranch Commission. We've increased our educational programming about the judiciary, courts, and law. For example, we held the first newly created workshop on Veterans Court with the amazing leadership of Michael Siegert of the District Attorney's Office. We have more than tripled our educational programming here. While virtual programming has been a benefit for PMC and Pennsylvanians, we have also returned to in-person and hybrid programs. We work with community partners on what they feel is the best way to reach their audience. We've had the good fortune to have magisterial district judges in Allegheny County reach out to PMC with ideas for programs, as well as willingly participate in our workshops. For that, I thank Judges Wheatley, Petit, Lovelace, Martini, Rudsky, Cooper, Miller, and King. And thank you for coming, many of you. Information on our upcoming programs, as well as recordings of many of our past programs, again, are available on our website. Our Court Watch program has also grown. It initially began in Philadelphia to observe preliminary arraignments. In the fall, we issued a report on the observations of court watchers. With the development and oversight by our Pittsburgh program coordinator, Leah Simpson, we now observe preliminary arraignments in Pittsburgh Municipal Court. We continue to partner with Carlow University and Chatham University to oversee several students working towards achieving either their Bachelor of Arts in Criminology or their Master of Arts in Psychology. We've now expanded this Court Watch program to a partnership with the University of Pittsburgh law students and Duquesne law students who have been trained as volunteer observers and have used the opportunity to have real-life application to their studies. We had an amazing program in Philadelphia that was created by some Temple law students who hadn't ever been to court and didn't learn about going to court in law school, and created a program when they became second year for first year law students to observe early bail review hearings, which has been an amazing program that we hope to continue. Here, the students' continued presence in the Allegheny courtroom has been influential in increasing PMC's recognition in the court. As you can see, PMC's growth in Pittsburgh has been very exciting, and we look forward to future productive endeavors. Your financial support of PMC allows this to occur. I would now like to welcome Paul St. Antoine, of Faegre Drinker, to present our writing competition program and winner. Paul is the chair of PMC's advisory board and has a long history of pro bono work in Pennsylvania. Or do we have Paul?
You have me, Debbie. Can you see me?
Yes. Okay, great. Thank you.
Fantastic. Every year for the past several years, PMC has challenged the next generation of lawyers by asking local law students to analyze and write about a difficult issue confronting the judicial system or the broader legal community. And this year was no exception. The topic of the 2024 law student writing competition concerned the issue of public approval of and trust in the U.S. Supreme Court, which has reached historic lows. As the winning essay pointed out, in 2022, only 44% of Americans had a favorable view of the court, compared to 76% in 1987. PMC asks law students to consider what can be done to restore trust in the court and confidence that decisions are not the product of biased political decision-making. The winner of this year's competition embraced the challenge of the topic. He analyzed the varied sources of the current public perception of the Supreme Court and identified a three-part proposal for restoring confidence in its decision-making. The winning essay, which will be posted on PMC's website, also included a discussion of the new Code of Ethics for the Supreme Court. With that background, it is my distinct pleasure to announce on behalf of PMC and my firm, Faegre Drinker, Biddle & Reeve, that the winner of this year's law student writing competition is Mr. Randy Goldson. Randy is a third-year law student at the Temple University Beasley School of Law. Congratulations, Randy, on winning this award, and best wishes for a fulfilling and impactful legal career.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We're witnessing unprecedented public disapproval of the United States Supreme Court, driven in part by the wide perception that the justices are not operating in full transparency. The situation is indeed lamentable, but lamenting alone won't help. We need practical and reasonable solutions to restore confidence in this essential institution. That's why I'm grateful to the Pennsylvanians for Modern Courts leadership for organizing this law student writing competition, and to Faegre Drinker for sponsoring it. And of course, the judges who graded each submission. The competition allowed me to, yes, lament, but more importantly, to look deeply at the cause of this decline in the public confidence in the court and to think creatively about solutions. In my essay submission, I framed the issue of declining public trust and confidence in the court and its decision as a crisis of legitimacy, institutional and judicial. Using polling data, I suggested that Americans are concerned about the justices' personal politics, conflicts, and ethical conduct, and how those things seemingly call into question the justices' integrity, independence, and impartiality. The legitimacy crisis is neither new nor irreversible. I propose that the court and Congress must act decisively to remedy this problem. The recently adopted Code of Ethics is a big step. It's a huge step, but only time will tell if it is a game changer. We need important reforms such as expanding the number of justices and instituting a rotation system similar to international tribunals. But short of judicial reform, we need greater public access, accountability, and transparency. For example, the author of the majority opinion or the Chief Justice should hold a press conference after announcing each decision so that the public can ask them tough questions that are not very much apparent in the written opinion, nor necessarily accessible, nor tell the whole story. We also need to see those conflicts of interest disclosure forms posted on SCOTUS website or appended to each decision. Finally, and this may somewhat complicate my response a bit, but a reminder from Alexander Hamilton in Federalist Paper 78. The judiciary, on the contrary, has no influence over either the sword nor the purse. It may truly be said to have neither force nor will, but merely judgment. I argue that this notion in the Federalist Paper of mere judgment is the power of the court, which in turn is sustained by the trust the public places in the court as an institution and in the justices, and in turn the court validating that trust by its justices acting with independence, impartiality, and integrity. I hope my essay will contribute to the public discourse around how to change the current negative perception of the court and bring real solution and change. Again, I want to thank you very much for this award.
Thank you, Randy. Your essay is giving me suggestions and ideas for our one-day law school for journalists, which we hold virtually, and we have journalists from all over the country. We have 500 people usually attend, and we have various topics educating the media as to how to cover the courts. We even talk about legalese. We even talk about, how you read a court decision, because they're not lawyers. I mean, even lawyers have trouble reading judicial decisions. So let's figure out a way to help the media help our country. Okay, so I am extremely excited to introduce Abby Ginsburg as our keynote speaker. I met Abby, I'll say virtually, when we were looking for the speakers for our Pennsylvania Judiciary Committee informational session. It was an informational session. They were actually out of session, and that's what happens. So she was wonderful to speak to, and I really was energized by her knowledge and breadth. She started her career as a lawyer and a law teacher following her graduation from law school. I'm not saying the year. She worked as a criminal defense trial attorney. She taught legal research and writing at UC Berkeley School of Law and torts at New College School of Law for 5 years. She then pivoted to making films, which is why I connected with her. So she is a Peabody Award-winning director who has been producing compelling documentaries about race and social justice for over 35 years. Most recently, her award-winning film, Judging Juries, which we will only see a snapshot of today, but I'm going to, as a teaser, it will be shown at our CLE tomorrow at Reed Smith at 9:30. Sorry, premiered at the Pan American Film Festival in February 2024. Her latest film, Shaking It Up, The Life and Times of Liz Carpenter, premiered at South by Southwest in March. Her film, Barbara Lee, Speaking Truth to Power, which won her a 2022 NAACP Image Award for Outstanding Documentary about Representative Barbara Lee, who is best known for her lone no vote against the use of military force following the 9/11 attacks, is available on Amazon Prime and Starz. She also co-produced American Justice on Trial, People versus Newton, which premiered in the 2022 San Francisco International Film Festival, and tells the story of the importance of having a diverse jury when Huey Newton was tried for the murder of a police officer in Oakland in 1968. Waging Change, Her 2019 documentary is about the challenges faced by tipped restaurant servers who are forced to rely on their tips and the federal tipped minimum wage of $2.13 per hour. It's almost not that much lower than our daily jury rate. And then they came for us in 2017, examines the connection between the incarceration of Japanese Americans during World War II and the current Muslim Muslim travel ban. The film was broadcast on public television in May of 2019 and 2020 and won a Silver Gavel Award from the American Bar Association for Best Documentary. I just want to say it has been an absolute pleasure to work with you. She spoke before the House Judiciary Committee. They asked her questions. They were really excited. I want you to hear about her work, and I thank you for joining us and coming in from California.
It's been a while since I've spoken before a group of lawyers. Sometimes it's filmmakers, sometimes it's law students, but lawyers not so recently. So I want to thank Debbie Gross both for that nice introduction and for inviting me here today. Because I think it's been a while since I've had to put on my lawyer hat. But I think it's important for you to know something about the work that kind of kickstarted my career, because it's related to diversity in the legal profession and it relates to why I care about diversity on juries. When I first started working on the issue of diversity in the legal profession, it was 1990 and I was working with the Bar Association of San Francisco. And what I had going for me at the time was that none of these lawyers knew anybody else who knew how to make a video. So when it came time to figure out how we were going to do some education for the law firms, for the judges, for other people in the community, and for the bar associations, they were kind of stuck with me. So that's how I kind of got here. I really started my career because of how important I thought diversity was and how messed up I thought all the reasons were that people were not being hired and then not being promoted. So for people here who have either had that experience, have friends who have had that experience, or know that this is a problem, I hate to tell you, things are not much better today than they've been, which is sort of where we are. So back in the day, the way that I kind of created the films that I made was I traveled both around, the Bay Area, but also the country. And I interviewed, the handful of minority partners and a handful of women partners to find out, how they were doing. And the answer was they were not doing very well. And part of the reason was the minority, the people of color who were partners in these large law firms, there was often one or two of them, and they felt like the entire burden of diversity was on their shoulders. So that if there was ever an issue, or if there ever was a Black law student who needed to be interviewed, or if there was whatever it was on their shoulders. And they felt like, we also have to do our 2,000 hours of work, and I'm not getting any credit for what I'm doing for hundreds of hours every year. So there was a sense that this was somehow the system was not working for anybody. And it was moving to me. I mean, it was really moving. So the way that I sort of made my initial films, I did a film on hiring. I did a film on, what it took to become a partner and all the reasons that people were not becoming partners. What were the stereotypes that were keeping people from advancing? And then, there were issues about lawyers with disabilities, issues about the LGBTQA community, et cetera. So I kind of became the person who, when somebody needed a film, they called. And it was, let me say this, it was an honor. I was no longer a lawyer. The only reason I ever walked into any of these fancy law firms was to do the interviews that I just described. But it was an honor to try to do justice to these stories. And I felt, again, I thought, oh, we'll make a few films, the law firms will use them, the bar associations will use them, and then things will change. Not so much. But at least I felt like my time and my energy was somehow still connected to the, to the profession that I was identified with. Let me say that when I went to college, I am so old that when I went to college, there was nothing like a documentary film course. If you were lucky, there was maybe a course on the history of cinema, from a French perspective. So I did not go to film school. I went to law school and figured out later through on-the-job training how to become a lawyer. I mean, how to become a filmmaker, and feel incredibly grateful for, and this is where my age actually works for me, because this was before every one of the people that we know today who are documentary filmmakers, most of them weren't even born yet. So I was at a moment in time when someone like me could actually learn through on-the-job training. I hired people who could teach me what I needed to know, and I was able to kind of get there. Okay, so all that goes to say that I just want to tell you a couple of statistics about how things have not improved for lawyers of color in the profession. So there's a recent 2022 report from the National Association of Law Placement, which is the group that keeps the statistics on law firm hiring and partners. Okay, so Black and Latinx women now account for less, in 2022, they accounted for less than 1% of all partners. Okay, so we are now talking, 32 years after I sort of started my work, and the numbers are sort of the same as they were 32 years before. That is painful to me. And I just want to call it out and say, it's your profession now. You got to do something about it. But it is staggering to me that 32 years later, we're still facing these numbers. So, okay, so how did I get interested in the problem that we don't have diverse juries in Oakland? Well, when I was a trial lawyer, you could get a diverse jury. I don't quite understand why that was possible, but I didn't really think about it, because I was a trial lawyer largely in San Francisco, and all my juries were diverse. I mean, we had a lot of people who showed up for jury duty, and, if I had a Samoan client, the chances were good somebody in the jury might actually be Samoan or Filipino or whatever. And it really made a difference. What the public defender of Alameda County, which is the county in which Oakland sits, which is a largely Black city, was finding is that there were no Black people, not only on the juries, but in the jury pool. And that freaked me out. Once again, I'm freaked out. And so that's how I had an Uber driver today who said, "How do you know when you're going to make a film?" I said, "My heart starts to race, my hands get clammy, and I realize that, oh, now here we go again. I'm going to make a film about whatever this problem is." And that is how I interact with the issues that I come up against, and say to myself, okay, this must be your story, because your heart wouldn't be beating like this and your hands wouldn't be clammy if you didn't think that there was a story to tell here. So that explains kind of how I got into it. The public defender of Alameda County is a Black man who's been there, I'd say about 12 years. And he sees himself not only as the lawyer for the criminal defendants, but he sees himself as essentially a public advocate for reforming the criminal justice system. And he has been quite amazing. And so I called him up blind. He didn't know me. And I said, "I'd kind of like to make a movie about you." And he's like, "Well, I'm busy." I said, "Yeah, but I'll do this in your spare time. And I just want to follow you around." Anyway, I got him to finally agree. I mean, again, he didn't know me, but he agreed finally that I could at least go with him to a local high school when he started talking about the importance of jury service. So that's where he and I started. And my goal when I started this film was to literally, it's like, who did I want the film to talk to? High school students, so that they don't adopt the really bad attitude that many people have, which is, I'm looking at a jury summons, I'm going to tear it up and throw it in the garbage, which is actually what you can get away with in Alameda County. And I wanted people to understand what was at stake. I mean, if we go back to the Huey Newton case that Debbie mentioned, Huey Newton was the head of the Black Panther Party in 1968. He was on trial for murder. If he got convicted, he was going to face the death penalty, no question about it. And what turned the tide in his case was that he had two really amazing lawyers, both white people, Charles Gary and a woman named Faye Stender. And they kind of took on the issue of racism in the jury panel. And as a result, by calling it out, and I think there's a book called something like, voir dire to undercut racism in jury panels, something like that. But it was novel. It was 1968. It was the first time it had been tried. And it was an effort to pull people's attitudes, not just about Huey, but about Black people in general, onto the table so they could actually get an open-minded jury. And among the people that they got on that jury was a guy who worked for the Bank of America, who was African-American and who wanted to serve. And he became the foreman and he helped get a result in that case that was really unpredictable. They got a manslaughter conviction. Huey did probably 2 years and was eventually released on that charge. But it showed the importance of what it meant to have people of color on this jury, because if they had had the kind of juries that we have today, which are basically all white retired people, it never would have happened. So there was this history in Oakland. There was the current reality of things being terrible. And the question was, could a short film about this make a difference? And we, let me say, we don't have any answers yet as to whether it's made a difference, but it got me here. So I want to thank you for bringing me to Pittsburgh. I want to say you have a fabulous city. I spent the day at the Phipps and at the Andy Warhol Museum. I just, it is very rare that I go to a new city where I've never been before and get to go home. It's like I'm like a member of the Chamber of Commerce speaking about it. So let me just say that I really appreciate coming here. And let me say that what we're calling out, both in Pennsylvania and in California, is a situation that is basically happening throughout the United States. In California, we pay $15 a day, no parking, no lunch, no nothing. And if you're in a 3-week trial, you can't afford to serve unless you happen to be somebody who's got a civil servant job and they pay you to, your job's your real wage in order to be on jury service. There are very few people for whom that is true. So you pay $9 and then you bump it up to $25. New Jersey and Mississippi still pay $5 a day. I mean, it is a scandal. And if we really believe, as lawyers believe in the Constitution and believe that we should have a cross-section of the community as part of our juries, we have a lot of work to do. So I feel like I am joining you. That was sort of the takeaway from having made this film. And I want to just say one other thing. In the course of making the film, one of the things about documentaries is you never know where the story is going to go, especially if you didn't do enough of your homework ahead of time. So I'm halfway through the film and somebody says, well, what about that program in San Francisco that pays jurors who earn less than $40,000 a year, $100 a day to serve? I say, what program? And I do my homework and I find out that there is this program and it makes a huge difference. So the difference between offering somebody $15 a day and $100 a day is enough to get a lot more people to be able to serve. And just think about that for yourself. It's like $500 a week. It's not a lot of money, but it's a lot different than $75 a week. So, part of what I want to say is there, and I just so appreciate the work that PMC is doing around this, that it becomes essentially, you start, maybe it's a citywide challenge, it becomes a statewide challenge. We are really forced to, you as officers of the court, I'm now an officer of the theater, not of the court. You have a lot of work to do because this is something we believe in and then we don't even know that it's gone to hell. We don't even know how bad it is. So I just want to say that I appreciate the opportunity, to join with you as we try to make justice a little bit fairer. And I'm going to read something that I don't know. I found it in the New York Times a week ago in an op-ed that was written by a guy named Jesse Wegman. And he wrote the following: trials and due process do matter. Juries matter. Our criminal justice system, despite its numerous flaws, is the best method yet established to settle on the truth and to do justice in a way that is widely seen as legitimate and fair. This is as it should be, because the courts hold your liberty and sometimes even your life in their hands. So the thing that motivates people to think differently about jury service is when you say to them, who would you want on a jury if you happen to be sitting in the defendant's chair? You would want somebody as open-minded as you are and maybe with your life experience. So I think there is a way to get more people to consider doing jury service, but we have to not make it a financial hardship on them. There's a judge in my film who says, I think because of the uniqueness of the US jury system, we should jump for joy when we get a jury summons. I don't know how many people are going to jump for joy, but we should have her voice in our head. as we think about new ways to get jurors to participate in the system. And so thank you again for having me. And I want to offer congratulations to tonight's honoree, Judge Kim Berkeley Clark, and to add my voice to those who are recognizing your trailblazing work on the bench, because it will take all of us to make the change that we hope to see in our lifetime. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Abby, for following your racing heart to tell us these great stories and important stories. Since each spring since 2018, Pennsylvanians for Modern Courts has awarded the Judge Justin Johnson Award to people who have distinguished themselves in their defense of judicial independence in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Past awardees include the Honorable Brooke Smith and all 5 of the immediate past governors of Pennsylvania. This evening, PMC takes immense pride in bestowing the 2024 Judge Justin Johnson Award upon the Honorable Kim Berkeley Clark. As most here know, Judge Clark recently punctuated her 40-year career in public service when she retired as President Judge of the Allegheny County Court of Common Pleas. I say punctuated rather than concluded, because anyone who knows Judge Clark knows that she will continue to serve the public for years to come. That's just who she is. Judge Clark joined the bench in Allegheny County in 1999 after her distinguished 16-year career as an assistant district attorney caught the eye of then Governor Tom Ridge, who appointed her, let me stress that, appointed her to fill an open seat on the court. She quickly won election to that seat and has served there ever since, first as judge in the family division, then as administrative judge of that division, and since 2018 as the president judge of the entire court, the first African-American to serve in that position. Despite her mounting administrative responsibilities, Judge Clark always passionately devoted herself to the family division. She has described many of the cases there as disturbing, emotional, and distressful, and they are. But she has also cited the opportunities for important victories, like seeing a juvenile offender become a productive citizen, closing foster care cases on positive notes, or seeing at-risk children find permanent homes through adoption. She's known nationally for her efforts to build what she calls trauma-informed courts that meet people who come before her where they are. When asked to sum up in a few words the philosophy behind a trauma-informed court, she says simply, just be kind. Judge Clark has received many honors and awards from organizations like the Urban League of Greater Pittsburgh, the Three Rivers Adoption Council, the Girl Scouts of Western Pennsylvania, the Pittsburgh chapter of the NAACP, as well as corporate citizens like PNC, Duquesne Light, WQED, and UPMC Children's Hospital. I will mention that one award that is particularly noteworthy and particularly meaningful to me. In 2017, she received the William A. Trenquist Award for Judicial Excellence from the National Center for State Courts for her pioneering work in juvenile justice. 2 years ago, Judge Clark was the keynote speaker at PMC's Spring Into Action benefit. There, she highlighted the direct and compelling connection between judicial independence and equality in the administration of justice. She said, a judge's duty is to impose sanctions and carry out sentences. It's equally a judge's duty to show the judiciary as independent and unbiased. Scales must be balanced, and we must take into account the unequal treatment people experience in the justice system. Amen to that. Judge Clark, PMC and I would be honored if you would come forward and accept the 2024 Justin.
So good evening, everyone. I have to say, I'm really truly honored to be here, especially receiving the Justin Johnson Award. I knew Justin Johnson all of life that I can remember. Justin Johnson and his family, his mother, his father, his siblings, and his family and mine have always had a close relationship. And Walter, can you give me your glasses? I can't see. I forgot mine, but he has his. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, there, it's better. So, so I'm really honored and humbled to receive an award that's named for him. I've admired him and in particular his brother Livingstone for all of my life. So I went on the website and PMC has their mission there, and I'd like to read it to you. It says PMC works to educate all Pennsylvanians about our courts and how to navigate them with confidence, provide resources to make that possible for all residents of the Commonwealth, and advocate for judicial reforms that promote inclusion and access to justice. We engage in a wide variety of initiatives to accomplish these goals and are currently developing new programming based on community feedback. So it's a wonderful mission to make sure that all people have access to justice, to make sure that the courts are fair. And Justin Morris Johnson lived in and breathed these ideals. He really did. And that was a trait of the Johnson family. And like I said, I've had the privilege of personally knowing Judge Johnson and his family for all of life that I can remember. My sister Allison here, she was babysat Judge Livingstone Johnson's daughter, oldest daughter, Lee Carroll, when she was a baby. And so we go way back. Our families go back together. And so the Judge Johnson's parents, Oliver and Irene Johnson, raised their children with kind of what we might think are some basic things, but in this day and age, we kind of lost it somehow when we see some of the things that are happening today. But they raised them to excel academically, to have a strong faith in God, to have a strong work ethic, and most importantly, to be servant leaders, to serve. We're here to serve. And that's what really the court system and the judicial system is about. We're first and foremost servant leaders. I tell everybody every day that I work for the people that come into my courtroom. And so when I realized that, I said, girl, you just have to start acting like it. I have to be as accountable to them as I am to the CEO of a corporation if I work there. And once I had that thought, it was kind of a life changer. It changed just the way I did business in my courtroom, and I think hopefully with positive results. The Johnson family has given much to the greater Pittsburgh community and to the world, really, and I have directly benefited from the counsel and wisdom of Judge Justin Johnson and his brother, Judge Livingstone Johnson. I really miss them both very much, but I do carry them in my heart, and I think about them often. So I want to say congratulations to Randy Goldson with his wonderful essay, and hopefully I'll read it all, and to Abby Ginsburg for her wonderful filmmaking. You know, the art of filmmaking is something that can really be a life changer for many people. And so thank you for that hard work. So those of you who knew Justin Johnson and knew Livingstone Johnson know that one of the things they did, they mentored many people that did not look like them. Many women like me who have benefited from their mentoring, many people who were of different races and ethnicities. And so I believe that really, I've never seen either of them have anything that I would call bias or any sign of racism or sexism. And so they knew that women like me, women like you, were capable, just as capable as they were of doing some things. So I want to close with a poem that I wrote about that called Know Your Place, AKA Stay in Your Lane. So I wrote this poem in celebration of Women's History Month. In my youth, women were told to know their place, Stay home, have babies, don't enter the man's space. As a woman today, I have been told to stay in my lane. Different words, but the message is the same. I concede that the 20th century brought some women progress, but for women of color, advancement has been much less. The average woman earns 68 cents to the average man's dollar. For Black women, it's 47 cents. Makes me want to holler. Where is my place? For sure, it's in the home, being wife and being mother, because nobody can nurture like a woman caring for others, but it's also in the boardroom and in the courtroom. It's in the classroom, in the operating room. I know my place. Like Rosa Parks, it's in the front of the bus, driving the bus. And like Kamala Harris, it's in the Oval Office. I know my place. Call me doctor, call me lawyer, call me teacher, call me dentist, call me scientist, call me preacher. I know my place. I know our place. We have a seat at the table. Biden knows our place. We're at his table. Kamala, Susan, Deb, Gina, Kristen, Marcia, and Isabel, Brenda, Cecilia, Linda, Catherine, Joel, Marcella, and Kantanji, all highly capable. But Lord, please don't tell me we want to sit at the head of the table to lead the discussion, want to be on the Supreme Court to fight oppression. I will stay in my lane, but it's not in the right, it's in the slow lane. I will stay in my lane, but it's not the middle of the road. That's mundane. I will stay in my lane, way to the left, moving fast. I will climb, I will soar, I will succeed, what a blast. I will keep pushing and scraping until at last, everyone knows my place is wherever I want to be, and my lane is wherever I want to go. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Your Honor, for giving us the honor of honoring you. I also want to acknowledge and thank a number of board members who are rotating off after years of dedicated service to PMC. I joined PMC during COVID, and they were my shining light, guiding me on the path forward. I truly appreciate their friendship and their leadership. I'm gonna well up. We will be honoring them at a PMC board meeting in June, but I would really be remiss in not taking time today at this program to thank them. So Bob Heim, our board chair, Tom McGuff, Jim Martin, Jeff Wiley, Nicholas Chimicles, and Tweet Tate. It is, I can't tell you how they were always there for me and PMC. It's been a tough couple of years, and we've all worked on this together. They're active and engaged board members, which isn't always something you find on a board. And so I truly appreciate it. We'll be welcoming a number of new board members, including Ginevra Ventre, Chris Lee, and Kim Donaldson Smith. So I just want to say, I truly will miss you. I'm not letting you go far. And I really thank you. And Jeff, I'm going to invite you up for our conclusion to say goodbye to everybody.
Judge Clark, congratulations. So well deserved. I'm losing my voice, so I hope you can hear me. And thank you for your wonderful comments and such a beautiful poem. Abby, thank you too. Wonderful comments. We're proud to be able to be part of the ceremony and to support you all. Thanks again.